Hey y'all, my name is Travis West. Thank you for taking some time to tune into this presentation. I'm going to go over my findings for the Lake Forest Mall market analysis as a part of my submission for Week 8's discussion post in the Foundations of Real Estate Markets course here at Georgetown. So here we go. So I thought it would make sense to, go over the site conditions and really work through what makes this site so attractive and what the strengths and weaknesses are. So I wanted to go ahead and point out the top three things I thought were going on with the Lake Forest site. So you got location, visibility, and accessibility. And it's better to look at something with a picture. So we're going to bring you over to the next slide here. So I thought we would get cracking by taking a look at the site, getting a bird's eye view, and being able to articulate what the strengths and weaknesses are geographically, and its for sort of physical presence, like how it sits on the earth. So one of the first things that jumped out as it pertains to the site's features in my eyes when I looked at it was this ponding happening here. Um, this ponding happening right here in the corner. That indicates that there's a lower elevation here. So it's about 355 feet above sea level, while the rest of the site goes upwards to about 405 feet in both directions. And so that's a big deal because much of the vehicular traffic, let's get rid of some of these arrows here, happens on Montgomery Avenue, and as you can see, and Frederick Avenue, which is a little bit out of the photo here. And that means that you're getting a lot of visibility when people drive by here, which is good for retail and other kinds of commercial developments like office buildings that may be branded and what have you. Another thing I'd like to point out is this really convenient transit center, which happens to be here as a part of the easement agreement between the site's owners and Montgomery County. So it's in perpetuity easement. That means that you're constantly moving bodies back and forth through the site. And it actually is going to be, there's a project underway to update the transit center in the near future. So I decided to put the zoning map here for reference. I thought it made sense to further break down what's going on in terms of the municipality's thoughts as it pertains to, what are the allowable uses on the site itself and the proximal nearby areas, what type of uses are being promoted near it. So what kind of environmental feel are they and experience are they trying to give their residents and visitors? So as you can see, the site itself is zoned C2, which is general commercial, and obviously the site is currently a super regional retail mall. Um, just below that is R90, which is the medium density residential neighborhood designation, and that dark pink that sort of surrounds it is the central business district designation. So as you can see, it kind of goes from um, you know the density kind of increases along Frederick Avenue, which is, if I get my pointer ready here, which is this road here, one more time, which is, okay, three times, third time's a charm. That road there increases and it goes into this area here, which is the central business district, and which it really highlights, how accessible the site is um, in terms of the roads. This is Interstate 270, um, and and this is the road that has the most impact in terms of moving people through Gaithersburg into Gaithersburg, and it's right near our site here, which is Lake Forest Mall. So again, just for reference, and this will become relevant later in my analysis. So, can't talk about doing a market analysis with a site in mind without establishing the primary and secondary trade areas. So, I tried to think about what was the best way to approach this, and it really came down to, okay, how do people move through Gaithersburg? How do they experience getting from, you know, doing their daily commute, getting to work, getting to do those errands on a daily basis, and you know, just trying to find amenities throughout their either their living space or the place that they came to visit. So just thinking about that like that, decided to select my primary and secondary trade areas based off of drive times. So using the drive time and route algorithms offered by WalkScore, I rationalize that the primary trade and secondary trade areas should be determined by the area that could be covered within a 10-minute and 20-minute drive, respectively. The coverage offered by a 10-minute drive is approximately the size of the city of Gaithersburg, while the 20-minute drive covers an area that is elongated by the vehicular connectivity offered by both I-270 and Frederick Avenue. So, yeah, I mean, 270 is super important for how this market works, and Lake Forest is conveniently located right next to it. So, now that we're, familiar with what's going on from a geographical perspective in terms of access to roadways and what have you, it's time to start digging into the analysis for the different property types available to us. And I thought it makes sense to start with the office market analysis here. So it's pretty straightforward what's going on in terms of the office market analysis. This market's got a lot of strengths, but also has few weaknesses. It's got a highly educated population. Over 25% of the population has a graduate degree or a professional degree. 25%, that's a lot. And 35% has at least a bachelor's degree. So you're talking about some highly educated folks here. Pretty good location. It's about an hour away from 2 international airports and less than 45 minutes from Washington, D.C., which is, the nation's capital and, one of the world's most powerful cities. So, it's got a bustling biotech industry. So, the biotech industry is growing. Let's pull up some stats here that are not exactly present in the presentation itself. The industry is expected to grow to $770 billion by 2024 globally, and has a market capitalization of $96 billion for the prospects for related business growth, such as leasing to biotech companies. That's important for this place because it has over 50 biotech companies. That's a lot of companies for a place that's only 10 square miles. And last but not least, has a large working age population. Population is about 57,000 people, and 46% of that, or sorry, I read that backwards. 64% of that population is working age between the ages of 18 and 64. Now for the downsides. Gaithersburg is a little bit overbuilt in terms of its available office space. So There's total rentable amount of office space of 6,465,171 square feet, and about a little over 1.1 million square feet of that is vacant. So that's a vacancy rate of 17.25, 17.2%, and that's over the national average, ladies and gentlemen, which is around 13.5%. So, that leaves for a lot of softness in the market, um, and there's a good amount of competition happening in the Lake Forest market too. There's folks who want to take advantage of that biotech niche, and so the Gaithersburg pipeline has 2.5 million square feet in development, and then the Montgomery County, which is Gaithersburg sits in Montgomery County right there next to Rockville. And so it has roughly 4.3 million square feet in addition to that 2.5 that I mentioned earlier. So if office were to be built in this space, there'd be a fair amount of competition and a bit of vacancy. But if someone were to, build to the niche, they could potentially capture that and, you know, rake in some some nice revenue. Moving on to the residential component of our analysis. Nice little photograph here. I'm a city kid, so I took to this. Okay, here we go. So one thing that jumped out to me when I was looking at this market was that the population is increasing and it has a very low vacancy rate. So the American Community Survey results from 2017 estimated that the population would grow to 67,000 people, roughly, which is a 12.5% increase from its current size, or its estimated size from the 2010 census. That's an annualized population growth of 1.69%, which is, if it continues on this trend, then Gaithersburg itself is going to grow to about, roughly 76,000 people. And, the larger trade area is going to grow to about 150,000 people. So that is based off the projections here. Gaithersburg itself is going to grow by 8,500 people by the year 2024. That means that with a household size of 2.7 people, that a minimum of 3,000 three-bedroom units, a little over 3,000, but three-bedroom units would have to be created in order to accommodate these persons in the Gaithersburg residential market. So we all know that not every unit being built is going to be a three-bedroom. You're going to have a range of unit types. So there's going to be 1 to 3 bedroom units, maybe 1 to 4 bedroom units. So just to hit the minimum, the Gaithersburg development construction market would have to develop 624 units to keep up with annual demand. 624 units annually to keep up with demand. But historically, it hasn't done that before. Looking at, I got the numbers here from 2016, 17, and 18, and it's in the good years, it's approximately 100 shy of meeting its minimum, and in down years, in 2017, it looks like it just wasn't able to even do about half. So there's really constricting supply and tons of demand in this market right now, which means that the city is going to, if it wants to maintain its influx of residents and its growth in its population, is going to have to start doing a little bit better than that on the production side. Moving on to the retail market analysis. On its face, the Gaithersburg market appears to be oversaturated in terms of the gross amount of retail space serving the area. The United States per capita retail space averages approximately 23.5 square feet. Meanwhile, the Gaithersburg per capita retail space is approximately 44 square feet. This information indicates that at least at a cursory level, the Gaithersburg primary trade area has a per capita supply that is both 20.5 square feet over the national average and 0.5 square feet over the average for the top 59 metropolitan areas. Obviously, this is just a top level initial analysis that only yields a superficial indication of the state of the site's retail market, but a deeper dive into the data points should reinforce this initial assessment. As of 2015, the total specified consumer expenditures amounted to approximately $1.98 billion and is projected to rise to $2.16 billion in 2020. This is estimated growth of roughly 8.5% over the 5-year period, or 1.65% annually. Assuming sales per square foot expectations of 400 for the food at home category and 350 for every other expenditure category, these annual growth projections should support a total of 2.44 million square feet in 2020, of 2.51 million square feet in 2021, and 2.57 million square feet in 2022. This is an additional 344,000 square feet and 441,000 square feet of space supported by sales for the years 2020 and 2021 respectively. This data indicates the purchasing power of both the metro area residents and the employees working in the area. While the growth in the total amount of retail space supported by sales and the Gaithersburg market's low vacancy rate per the 2015 CoStar data suggests a reasonably tight retail market in the site's primary and secondary trade areas, there are both quantifiable and unquantifiable factors that might soften this assessment. Starting with the quantifiable, there are proposed projects in the Gaithersburg development pipeline for a total of 897,314 square feet, which represents a total increase of 11.5% in total retail space. Based on the current projections, this amount would take 7.5 years to absorb. This is a lengthy period of time which should curtail the market's appetite for retail space once delivered. The unquantifiable factors may be more daunting. Due to technological advances in modern consumer behavior, online shopping is leading to greater rates of leakage, excess purchasing power spent outside the trade area. With the choice to buy a range of goods and merchandise online, it obfuscates whether or not leakage represents a development opportunity unmet by a type of retail space in the trade area, or if consumer preferences have permanently shifted to buying some items online. That being said, while there are flashes of strengths in the retail market, ultimately there's greater signs of weakness. Now let's look at the effect of mixing uses on the Lake Forest site. The site is proximal to several heavily traveled roads that are considered congested and is adjacent to areas with higher density municipal zoning designations. Since roads heavily traveled by vehicles such as Frederick Avenue and the Inter-County Road 124 will create adverse living conditions like ambient noise, street lighting, etc. For nearby residential uses, it would be prudent to create a buffer space that shields residents. Conversely, retail uses are better suited to occupy highly visible, heavily traveled roadways. Therefore, higher potential synergy exists between mid to high density residential uses and retail uses occupying the same relative location. This is further exacerbated by the in perpetuity easement created for the Lake Forest Transportation Center, which is on the southwest corner of the site. Retail in the form of entertainment centers and/or convenience centers placed along the Odenhall Avenue and Montgomery Village Avenue could attract and capture enough traffic to be economically self-sustaining while also serving the many for residents situated on the interior of the site. Residents should aim should aim for Gaithersburg's highest density residential designation and add 2 to 3 multifamily structures on site that would have a proportion of their occupants' disposable income captured at the nearby retail amenities. So, having reviewed and researched this entire market, it's now time to come to the conclusions and recommendations of this report. From a demand perspective, the most economically viable uses for the Lake Forest site would be first, residential, then office, and finally retail. That being said, the site's total available land area is a whopping 4.4 million square feet or 102 acres. That, if they were all converted to either a purely residential or office program, would represent a significant change in the market's overall supply for either category. Ironically, given the sheer size of the site, converting some of the land area away from retail use also represents a significant delta in the market's retail supply. This means that selecting a mixed-use program offers a shrewd way for it because it utilizes the advantages of a large parcel to select a balance of supply and demand that is most appropriate for the market. This analysis suggests that the retail program of the Lake Forest site should be strategically reduced to evade the softening demand for that use category and increase the footprint of either residential or office uses. This analysis goes even farther by suggesting that a residential program should be selected for two reasons. One, as articulated previously, residential use is the product in highest demand, and based on the projects in the area's pipeline and the predicted absorption rate will be for another 5 to 7 years. And two, higher synergies exist between residential uses and retail uses as stated in the previous slides than those related to medical office use, which would be the case in the case of the biotech companies that are prevalent in the area.